because it's just like, I know people don't want to hear it, and it's one of those things that just no one wants to believe, but when you start censoring other people, that censorship is inevitably going to be used against you at some point. There will come a day when you have an opinion or you have a thought that goes against the mainstream opinion, and you're gonna be fucking held to account for it in a way that you engineered by supporting censorship of others.
Or you have to self-censor yourself and say, I would like to say this, but I realize with the public square and the way things are that I just have to censor myself.
Right, and that's a terrible position to be put in too.
I mean, people always think about just like, you put an idea out in your band, but it's like what about the number of people that have to just self-censor because they just realize that there's no possible way to actually make or say what they want without offending so many crybabies, that instead of letting people decide how to feel about that and challenging ideas, we need to feel safe with ideas. And the thing is, like, look, challenging people might upset them and it might piss you off and it might, you might, like you said, have a visceral reaction, but if we don't ever challenge ourselves and open our mind to different ideas and possibilities, then we're always just going to be static and stay the same. And that's not ever been the way of humanity, and it continues to not be the way. I mean, people can ascribe, oh, this is offensive or bad, but those ideas are still going to be fostered somewhere in some place. I mean, look about white supremacy, like these nationalist movements. Try as hard as you can to ban them. Punch a Nazi in the face, public square, do all this stuff, but it's like, you know what? Punch a bunch of Nazis in the face, and eventually they're violent thugs. So when you go try to do that, they kill you, they beat you. Look at these Proud Boys.
Yeah, all you're doing
people.
is escalating
these
shit.
Proud Boys and shit. So these Antifa fucks started getting more and more violent. So these other groups that rise up and then violence is justified, we're beating the shit out of them. What do they expect? A bunch of jackboot thugs are always gonna be a bunch of little pussies? Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it fucking works. They don't understand. That's not the way to go. You have to expose these people and talk about, like, thoughtful dialogues. It's like watch American History X, and how that guy was actually converted away is probably a perfect example of like that. And that's a movie, it's a work of fiction. But it was like understanding, oh, like you said, this is a person. This is like someone I can have a dialogue with. This isn't just this fucking caricature I've made in my mind, which all people that look like this are evil and bad, and want to destroy my way of life and everything I've known and held sacred. It's like everyone's just kind of trying to live their life and no one has any fucking idea, dude. That's reality.
Yeah. 100%. Anyway, let's get a little further into this.
The nature of language is that we have a shared
Between
understanding
the stars,
of what these
the
words
ancient,
mean. So creating
unseen
some sort
enemies of
artificial
mankind
scenario,
wait
words
and
don't mean
hunger.
anything is to
These
Well, no one's saying they don't mean
give
anything.
them no
So that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
George
like-
Carlin never said they don't mean
George Carlin said, these words are meaningless. All words are meaningless.
He was talking about censorship, just like what you're kind of. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the conclusion. Let's see if we can figure out where he's going with this. So I don't want to really talk to you.
communicate with one another without relying on language at all.
We don't care when Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy say it. Why? Because we know they're not racist. They're niggers. Context. Context. We don't mind their context because we know they're black. Hey, I know I'm Whitey the Blue-Eyed.
Okay, so let's just make a point here. George Carlin's saying the context is what matters with words is not even close to approaching saying words have no meaning. No, what he's saying is the meaning of the word is contingent upon the context. Like, you know, if I say, like, we'll just take like a word like fuck or something, or I hate to go back to a Rob Schneider routine, but the word dude, you know? I hate to admit it, but Rob Schneider pointed out that different uses, like, depending on how you say the word dude and the context of what's going on around you, it means totally different things. Dude! Yeah, it can be like an attention grabber. It can be like a fucking exclamation of like, oh shit. What's up, dude? Dude. Or it could be like excitement. Dude! You know, like it could be I mean, like there's so many words like that. Like fuck. A lot of these exclamatory words, especially, the distinction between them is really fucking marked.
You know another word is buddy.
Yeah.
Like, that's my buddy over there. Like, you're talking to a kid like, hey, buddy, you come over here. Then there's like, what are you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like buddy is like a fuck you thing. So, or it could be a nice thing, it could be talking to your kid thing.
I mean, that's just about tone. But there's also words that it just depends on context. And it's like the example he gave is pretty much perfect. You know that if Richard Pryor says nigger, it's not because he's racist. We know he's not racist because he's a member of that race, and it's common for people in that race to say that word. Whereas, you know, if a dude is at a Klan rally and he's like, we gotta hang all you know, whatever, then obviously that is racist.
Yeah, the context is
You know,
what,
and it doesn't have to be that blatant, I understand. I'm using two very extreme examples.
be a fucking dude sitting on his couch like, these damn Mexicans taking all our jobs, fucking damn wetbacks, kill them all. You know, it's like, it could be a more casual fucking thing. It doesn't fucking, what you're saying is, you just have to look at what someone said.
Yeah, I mean,
How they're saying it, where they're saying it, the context.
the point that George Carlin is making here is that the word in and of itself is not the issue. It's not the word that made people racist. It's the racism. You know, it's not the fact that the dude. I mean, it's not the fact that a white person says the N-word. It's how they fucking say it. Like, if I'm talking about, you know, Huckleberry Finn to someone, and I reference the character Nigger Jim, I don't think that that should be viewed as like, you're racist. You're not allowed.
They give me everything but. Give me crowd freeze, brain loss.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So, I've been discussing the Paycheck Protection Program from a business owner's point of view for the past several weeks, trying to apply for it, just like seeing what the banks tell people, what the application process is like, what the guidelines are, how those guidelines are very vague and then change, and I've shared with you some of the general frustration just going throughout this entire process. Now, one of the bits of pushback that I've been getting is that, you know, the banks or, you know, they weren't with, it's not like anybody can ever be prepared for this. This is something where they're not really making much money off of it. They're not really happy that they're having their arm twisted to be included in this program. And I wanted to push back a little bit against this idea that, you know, that this kind, generous, benevolent bank is just doing this as a, you know, because Steve Mnuchin asked them to as a favor. If you take a look at this article, it says Small Business Rescue earned banks $10 billion in fees. Banks handling the government's $349 billion loan program for small businesses made more than $10 billion in fees, even as tens of thousands of small businesses were shut out of the program, according to an analysis of financial reports by NPR. And if you do a little bit of basic 4th grade math, 8th grade if you went to a New York City public school, you'll see that that's 2.86% that they made in fees for loaning out someone else's money. We're not even talking about the fee that they're going to get, but there's the risk involved of them loaning out their own money. Taxpayers provided the money for the loans, which were guaranteed by the SBA. They made 2.85% in 2 weeks, loaning out $349 billion of your money. Let that sink in for a second. Over here, the interesting part is where it says for every transaction made, banks took in 1 to 5% in fees, depending on the amount of the loan, according to government figures. Loans worth less than $350,000 brought in 5% in fees, while loans worth anywhere from $2 to $10 million brought in 1% in fees. So just to give you a bit of perspective here, and again, this is some basic 4th grade math, 9th grade if you went to a New York City public school, is that if for a $350,000 loan, you're looking at the bank getting a fee of $17,500. For a loan to, let's say, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse of $10 million, you're looking at a 1% fee, which is $100,000. Now, if you really do the high-level math, like that 12th grade level math from a New York City public school, if they had loaned the $10 million out to small businesses, then they could have made $500,000 in fees off of that $10 million. By loaning it to large businesses, they make 5 times less. They make $100,000 instead of $500,000 off of that same $10 million. So there is actually some incentive here for banks to have loaned out to small businesses rather than large businesses. And if you take a look at the fee over here, 1% for large business, 5% for small business, and the fee overall comes out to 2.865%, that does mean that the banks loans more to small businesses than to large businesses, but only by a really small margin. It really does come out to like 55-45 here if my math is correct. So what I still think happened here, and this is just my theory, and I'm not the only one who thinks it, given the law firms that are deciding to sue these banks for providing loans to larger customers first, rather than doing it first come, first serve, is that even though banks stood to make more money off of the loans by loaning it out to small businesses versus large businesses, it still stands that they could have loaned the money out to large businesses because they were more in debt. So, if I go out of business, I leave the bank holding a bag of, let's say, $30,000 to $70,000 for the credit card, because I spend maybe $30,000 to $50,000 a month on my credit card, and then at the end of the month when the bill's there, I pay it. If I go out of business, I don't pay it. Whereas a business like Roots Chris that may be 50 or 60 or $80 million in debt is going to leave the bank holding a much larger bag. So if the bank is able to direct a bailout package that they're not even paying for, they're probably going to be incentivized to give that bailout package to the businesses that would leave the bank holding a larger bag, which are the larger businesses. Being a small business, I don't have the capacity to go into debt 10 or 20 or $80 million. But Shake Shack or Roots Chris or any of these other publicly traded companies that dared to take out a loan that was designed for small businesses. Small businesses don't tend to trade on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, just saying. Is that they just wanted to avoid holding the bag. And the part that I got the biggest kick out of in this entire article was a statement that came from Bank of America. The program has significant vetting requirements, the bank said in an email, including collecting, personally examining, and storing data that is required for each application. I repeat that. The program has significant vetting requirements, like collecting, examining, and storing data. If you bought Flux off of my WooCommerce website 7 years ago, I then collected, examined your data when I printed the shipping label and stored that data so that if you called me to ask what your tracking number was because the email went to spam, I could provide it to you. Collecting and storing data is something computers have been doing since the 50s. We've been doing this shit with punch cards. That is not significant vetting. Significant vetting is when you have to figure out if a business is profitable. It's when you figure out, is one particular executive from that business making too much money and leaving none for the business, so if we loan it to them, the business is going to go under and he's going to leave with it. It's figuring out what their assets are. It's not reading your W-3, dividing it by 12, multiplying it by 2.5, and seeing if that number in box 1 of your W-3 matches the amount that you asked for. The only processing that needed to be done here, the only vetting was, is this your social security number? Is this your tax ID? And in your W-3 in box 1, when you divide that by 12 and multiply it by 2.5, does that come out to the amount that you asked for? If yes, rubber stamp loan. If not, then F you. And even in that case, as I said, I did not fill out my loan sheet according to that standard because that was not the fucking standard that the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants even thought you were supposed to fill it out to based on the Treasury Department's initial statements. And I, surprisingly enough, wound up getting approved. What vetting are you talking about? You know, one of the things that I said is that I really genuinely wish that I was wrong with this program, and I was somewhat yes and no wrong. I was wrong in the sense that I thought that I wasn't going to be able to get a dime out of it. But when I speak to my CPA, out of the over 500 people he has that use Chase Bank, I'm the only one that got anything. I don't consider that a win. I really don't consider that a win. I don't know anybody outside of myself that got approved for this that I speak to in my industry, or that I know, or that I'm friends with, or who is a business owner. I don't know anybody but me. If you got something out of this, you know, let me know in the comments down below. I'll believe it. I'll believe that I got it when I actually see it hit my bank account as opposed to getting email. But this is, I still think that this concept that the banks were doing this charitably, like, you really do have to look at the fee structure here. 2.8% for loaning out other people's money is quite a bit. And when people say that these banks don't have the ability, there's no staff for it, blah, 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 you really need to kind of get an understanding of what banks like Chase are like, at least where I am. I would not open a store 4 blocks away from my existing store because I would consider that redundant. Dare I say, I may consider that overstaffing or an irresponsible use of my business's funds. I may open one store in Jersey, one store in New York, maybe in different sides of town. If you take a look at what Chase does with it, let's just take a look at Chase Bank and around my zip code here. So if you take a look at Chase Bank, this is obscene. So this is about 1 mile over here. Like this section is approximately like maybe 1 mile. In 1 mile, one bank, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Look at this. So this is right where my old store used to be. You have a bank over here on 15th Street and 1st Avenue. If you walk 5 blocks over, 1st Avenue and 10th Street, you have another Chase Bank. Now, they actually changed the branding on Washington Mutual back to the Washington Mutual branding. But believe it or not, if you walked right over to St. Mark's Place, which would have been 8th Street, you have another Chase Bank literally 2 blocks away from this one. So Chase Bank over here, Chase Bank over here. And we're not talking about, blocks in Kansas. These are city blocks. I take a 20-second walk from here to here, and you're from a Chase to another Chase. You walk from here to here, which is, even if you're eating at Arby's all day, this is a 1.5-minute walk max, you are at another Chase. If you walk from here to here, you're at another Chase. Here to here, you're at another Chase. Here to here, you're at another Chase. There are Chase banks everywhere in this city. I personally believe that having this many bank locations is somewhat irresponsible, because instead of keeping that money saved for a rainy day or using it to save people on fees or paying it out to your employees, you're utilizing that money to just keep opening new locations in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I don't think that someone is making their decision on what bank to use based on the fact that this bank did not have a location once every 2 blocks. People that are on 13th Street, they're able to make the walk over to 10th. You don't have to open another bank on 15th Street. But the thing is, if you're going to have this many bank locations with a full staff at every single one, every 2 blocks, and you're making $10 billion to process these applications, a nice 2.8% fee on someone else's money, it's really hard to buy the idea that we just didn't have the staff to handle this. If it were any other business on earth, I would believe it. But if you need to live in Manhattan, you need to walk the streets and just see how many Chase banks there are every 2 to 3 blocks to understand why it's difficult for business owners that live in Manhattan to understand how it is that Chase was not able to get around to everybody's applications. So that when my banker, who has 500 Manhattan clients that all use Chase Bank, say that they were not able to get a loan, any of them, man, it's just kind of weird. It's kind of funny. It's one of those really strange coincidences, given the sheer volume of staff that you have in the city. But what do I know? Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. I am very interested in the difference in fee structure. I wasn't aware of the difference in fee structure to where if the bank loaned out the money to small businesses, that $10 million will get them $500,000 in fees, but if they loan it out to larger businesses, they get $100,000 in fees. That was a new piece of information thrown into the works. There are 2 ways to interpret it, which is either A, the banks really didn't have motivation to loan out money to larger businesses versus small, they actually had the opposite. Or B, the banks were so worried about becoming insolvent if the largest businesses wound up going under that they would have rather taken less money in fees, less money in profit, simply to prop up businesses that would have left them holding 6, 7, 8-figure bags if they went out of business. I'm just kind of curious. You let me know what you think in the comments down below. But that's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. That's my key. Her name is Black. She's a good kid. See y'all next time.
Witness the glory of the Emperor.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I'd like to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program and why I have decreasing faith in this program with each passing day. I would ask that before you form an opinion on this, that we keep partisanship out of it, and that you put yourself in the shoes of a small business owner like myself for the first 5 minutes of the video and try to imagine how it is that you would feel at the end of this, having gone through this experience. I started going through this experience on April 2nd. It was the day that Steve Mnuchin had said that tomorrow they're going to be giving out loans, they'll be ready to take applications, and many banks will be able to give out money the same day. Banks like mine, some of the largest banks in the country, like Chase, not the best bank, but one of the largest ones in the country, one of the ones you would have figured they would have coordinated with when creating this program, had a page on their website that just politely said, don't contact us, don't come to a branch, don't call us. We'll let you know when we're offering this, but it's not going to be tomorrow. Then, several days later, they did have a page on their website that looked like an application, but it wasn't an actual application. This was a form that you fill out so that Chase can then contact you once the actual application is ready. This tricked a lot of people into believing it was the application, but it was not. I filled this out. I did not receive an email confirmation. I did not get contacted at any point in time. I did keep checking back on the site, not waiting for Chase to contact me. And early yesterday morning, I noticed that the site was updated with the actual real application. Chase had never contacted me like they said they would in their first application to tell me that this was ready, but luckily I found it and it was there and I was able to apply. Now, if we take a look at what most people believe this bill means, it says this is from Forbes, calculating the maximum amount of your loan. They use terms like payroll costs, calculate average monthly payroll costs, and this is the language that you'll see used in the actual bill. Average monthly payroll costs, which is somewhat ambiguous, and I'd like to explain why it is that is ambiguous. So if you take a look at this spreadsheet that I received from my payroll provider, it has my different payroll costs here. So these are the employee earnings. This is what the employee sees in their paycheck, and then there is a part of this that is going to be taken out. You know, the 20 to 40% in taxes, depending on where it is that you live and how many dependents you have, and so on and so forth. So this is the part where if I'm paying you $20 an hour, you'll see $20 an hour on your paycheck, and then after the taxes are taken out, it'll be somewhere between $15 to $17 an hour. But what most employees don't see is that there are actual payroll taxes that the employer pays that never show up on your pay stub. So in order for me to pay someone $20 an hour, I actually have to pay them closer to $22 an hour, as you can see here, because of the $624,114.73 that the employees see and then have taxes deducted from, there's another about $47,000, $49,000 of taxes on top of it, which means that my yearly payroll was not $624,000, it was actually $673,000. And there was a lot of confusion regarding whether or not you're supposed to count the earnings tab or the total payroll cost. And take note of the fact that my payroll provider themselves in their email to me this morning used the word hot debate to describe what has been going on regarding discussion in the payroll community about which box I'm going to use to determine my monthly payroll costs under this bill. Even the payroll company, when they sent me the reports, never told me which number to use, and now it makes sense why they were ambiguous in this matter, because they didn't even know, and they were fighting amongst themselves as to how the bill is to be interpreted. People like me thought that what you were supposed to count was total payroll cost, because what keeps getting mentioned is your total payroll, not just earnings, but total payroll. I decided to take a look on the website of the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants, because I figured the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants would understand how to interpret this a little bit better than I would. I read through this post that they made on April 4th, a day after applications had started, and it said over here, Mark Koziel, CPA, CGMA, the AICPA's Executive Vice President of Firm Services, added, based upon statements from members of Congress, it appears that the intent of the Paycheck Protection Program was to base the salary calculation on gross wages with no adjustment for federal taxes. This ensures that payroll tax expenses are not passed on to the small business in need. In a program of this magnitude, it's expected that guidance will evolve and terms will be clarified. This is not the interpretation of the bill from a small business owner, laptop repair person pretending that he knows what he's doing. This is the interpretation of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I filled out my application yesterday morning, and then yesterday late afternoon and in the evening, this came out, which I'd like to show you. This came out from the Treasury Department, and this is where steam just starts rolling out of my head. As of April 6, 2020, as in after Lewis filled out his application, 3 days after applications were available from other banks, if you go to question 16, how should a borrower account for federal taxes when determining its payroll costs for the purposes of maximum loan amount, allowable uses of a PPP loan, and the amount of a loan that may be forgiven? Under the Act, payroll costs are calculated on a gross basis without regard to, i.e., not including subtractions or additions based on federal taxes imposed or withheld, such as the employee's or employer's share of FICA and income taxes required to be withheld from employees. As a result, payroll costs are not reduced by taxes imposed on an employee and required to be withheld by the employer. But payroll costs do not include the employer's share of payroll tax. I repeat, payroll costs do not include the employer's share of payroll tax, in direct opposition to how the American Institute of CPAs interpreted this bill. This bill is so vague that professional accountants and the trade organization that they belong to were in agreement that this was going to include those taxes. Then the application came out, and people filled them out listening to what their CPA told them, listening to what this website told them, because most small businesses are going to listen to their accountant. And then the Treasury Department comes out several days after millions of applications have been submitted and says, oh yeah, we didn't mean that. We're not covering that part, actually. So like what does this mean? What does this mean for the millions of people that filled out the application before you change the rules? Because it says on the site that we cannot edit our submission after we make it. We can't take back our application, redo it. It's like, what does that mean? Like, you're allowed to change the rules after the bill comes out, but we can't edit our application after submitting it to fit the new rules and clarifications that you made. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking serious? Because this is, again, this is just one of those tipping over the Monopoly board moments in society. And I really, really, really hope that I am wrong. But if Boeing and Delta and United and all these other fuckface companies that put all their money into buying back stock rather than putting it for a rainy day fund are able to get their money, and millions of applications get denied on a technicality that was so vague that the Trade Association for Professional Accountants was in direct disagreement with you. Oh, that's not going to be good. It's not going to be good to see when millions of small business owners across the country just tip over the Monopoly board and say, fuck it, I'm not playing by the rules anymore, because they're not just vague and apply differently to different people, but they're fundamentally humiliating. Changing the rules as to how to interpret the bill after millions of applications have been submitted is such utter horseshit. It's like trying to play a game of Street Fighter when someone is pouring water on your controller. It is like trying to play soccer when someone is dialing gravity up and down as you kick the ball. This is just fundamentally, at its core, a humiliating and degrading experience if people are actually declined. And I do genuinely pray and hope that this is not the way this turns out. That you do not decline the millions of people that submitted this based on their CPA's recommendations on a technicality, because you decided to change the clarification of the rules 3 days after the applications came out. But Boeing, Delta, and United, everybody else gets their bailout, and if they don't dot an I or cross a T, they have someone to call. They can resubmit their application, but the small business people cannot. That is going to be a Monopoly board tipping over moment. I don't know what to say. Like, this is just beyond frustrating. Like, absolutely beyond frustrating. You follow every single rule. You follow every single guideline. And it's just like, trolled you. Right? Like, right after you fill it out. I mean, I genuinely don't know what to say. You know, I speak to people it doesn't matter where in the political spectrum people tend to be, people don't seem to expect competence from government. When I speak to people on the right tend to believe that government is the problem, government is incompetent, government is bad at things, and they should be left out of it. When I speak to people on the left, they dislike Trump and don't think he is fit for office, so they distrust government and think that they're not going to do a good job as well. But regardless of who I speak to on whatever side of the aisle, it seems that there is this interesting consensus that government is somehow going to screw this up. And do you know how much I want to be wrong here? Do you have any idea how much I wish that I look back on this video and laugh at how stupid and wrong that I was, that government is going to do the right thing? I really have an incentive here to be wrong, but every single piece of evidence, every single thing that has occurred to this time points to me being correct, points to this program being an absolute utter clusterfuck from top to bottom, whether it's lack of preparedness, whether it's statements on preparedness that are not correct, whether it is banks that decide we're going to give the money to customers that owe us money first before everybody else can get it, or the rules changing 3 days after it comes out. Where would you be as a small business owner if you were going through this? What do you think of this entire experience? I'm genuinely curious to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Me? I'm like this close to wanting to just tip over the Monopoly board. And as I've said many times before, it's a bad place to be in when society organizes itself in a way where people that play by the rules for 5 or 10 or 15 years and do everything by the book, at some point just decide, fuck it. You want to avoid that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. And if you're filling out your PPP application, make sure to read the Treasury Department guidelines linked below. I'll see you in the next video. Hey everybody, how's it going? So a few years ago, I did a video on why I dislike a lot of forms of personal insurance, and I got absolutely hammered in the comments for misunderstanding the idea behind insurance, and I'd like to clarify and also explain why I still hold the opinions that I did about 4 years ago today regarding insurance. I spoke in a video I did about 3 months ago, just a personal anecdote from my business regarding insurance. 8 years ago, there was a hurricane. As a result of the hurricane, my entire zip code lost electricity. Since I own an electronics repair shop, one of the prerequisites is electricity. Since I had no electricity, my business was interrupted, and I thought I had an easy case for a business interruption insurance policy. Well, I contact the Hartford and I call them up, and as I explained in the video, told them everything that went on, and they go, well, no, we don't cover flood or water damage. You don't have a flood policy. And I said, what? I said, there's no water in my store. Why would there possibly be a flood policy that's necessary? I don't have electricity. No. You don't understand, little business owner. You don't have electricity because the Con Ed plan blew up. The Con Ed plan blew up because of a flood. You don't have flood insurance, so you're fucked. And here I thought, I'm a proper business now. I'm not working out of the park like I was in 2009 or out of my apartment like 2010 or in a basement like in 2011. No, now I have a store. So I'm going to get myself a proper policy from the Hartford to cover my business in case there's any sort of loss. And what happened when I came upon a point where I would have needed the policy was they essentially told me to go fuck myself, pointed to some fine print on page 76 or whatever of the contract that said that I wasn't covered and to go away now. This has been my experience with insurance throughout my life and throughout my business, is that there's this concept that the insurance is there so that if there is a large amount of money that needs to be paid out that you don't have, you are making those small payments the whole time because there's a chance that you may get paid out more than all the payments that you had already given the insurance company. That's what many people who criticized me in my old insurance video said. I said that I don't like insurance because it's like asking for money back that you pay them. And they said, you idiot. It's not like you give them $3,000, you ask for $3 back. You give them $3,000 and maybe you have a heart attack or cancer and you need $300,000 back. No. The reason that I don't like most forms of insurance is because there's a basic fundamental conflict of interest. And that fundamental conflict of interest is as follows. The company that stands to lose money from paying out the claims is the company that interprets the contract and chooses whether or not they pay out the claim. It's not a third-party arbiter that is deciding. It's like, I mean, imagine if you're watching a boxing match and the referee is employed by one of the boxers. Like, that would be ridiculous. Of course, that boxer would almost win every single match because he hired the referee. Yet with insurance, this is the way it works. The insurance company is their own referee. They get to choose what is paid and what is not paid out, and surprise, surprise, there's a lot of times where totally legitimate claims are not paid out. Now, some of you may think that I'm overreacting, that I'm just being salty because I don't have a business interruption policy, and I just spent a whole lot of money moving to a new store that's probably going to have less business as a result of being interrupted by coronavirus, and you're just being salty. No. So I still am indeed a real business owner, and I do keep up to date on all of my policies that I should have as a business owner, which is why I have a business interruption insurance policy, as you can see over here. And if you take a look at this lovely policy, it says, "Dear policyholder, Thank you for selecting us as your insurance company for your commercial business owner's policy. This letter is required by the New York Department of Financial Services. It is an explanation of the coverage provided for the loss of business income incurred during a business interruption caused by the coronavirus. Please contact your agent or broker directly with any questions. Now, the reason that I would like to read you what my business interruption policy says is because many people in the business world, in the landlord world, and especially outside the business world think insurance is this basic thing where when you need it, it's just there. You have a problem, you use insurance. Business interrupted, business interruption insurance. Health problem, health insurance. They don't see the reality that I'm going to read to you after showing you this text message. So out of curiosity, I just messaged one of the people who works at my management company. He was actually a really nice guy. He's very kind, very honest. He was the only person of all the places I saw that honestly advertised this space as the size that it actually was. So I have a lot of respect for this individual. And I said, how is this affecting your other commercial tenants? We have business getting mailed in from all around the country, but people who rely on walk-in business must be getting creams right now. I was reading in the news about several restaurant chains that are not paying rent while they're closed. It's got to be a property manager's nightmare. And his response was they really should have business interruption insurance. Restaurants and bars will pay what they can for now. It's hard for Chinese restaurants that we manage particularly. They should have business interruption insurance. Now, what is business interruption insurance? Well, the concept behind business interruption insurance is that if your business is interrupted for reasons that are outside of your control, not just I didn't feel like going to work today, that the concept behind it, the reason that I was paying for it in 2012 and the reason that I'm still paying for a policy from a different company now is the concept that if I'm forced for some reason to stop doing business and my business is interrupted, that I will be compensated the lost revenue or wages or at least a percentage of it that I would have expected to make during that time period. That's the principle. Here's the reality. New York Coronavirus Business Interruption and Related Coverages Advisory Notice to Policyholders. This notice does not form a part of your insurance contract. No coverage is provided by this notice, nor can it be construed to replace any provisions of your policy, including its endorsements. If there is any conflict between this notice and the policy, including its endorsements, the provisions of the policy, including its endorsements, shall prevail. This notice is in response to a call for a special report pursuant to Section 308 of the New York's insurance law with respect to business interruption, often referred to as business income and/or extra expense and related coverages, and to the novel coronavirus pandemic. The following provisions of your policy may affect coverage with respect to a coronavirus. However, actual determination of coverage depends on the relevant facts and circumstances of each claim. Carefully read your entire policy, including the endorsements attached to your policy. If you have any questions, please contact your broker, producer, agent, or insurer. Covered causes of loss. The covered causes of loss are established as direct physical loss unless the loss is excluded or limited under Section 1. Property. Virus or bacteria exclusion. There is no coverage for loss or damage caused directly or indirectly by any virus, bacteria, or other microorganism that induces or is capable of inducing physical distress, illness, or disease. To the extent that loss or damage is not excluded, the following additional coverages are provided. Business income. Coverage is provided for the actual loss of business income you sustain due to necessary suspension of your operations during the period of restoration. The suspension must be caused by direct physical loss or damage to property at the described premises and must be caused by or result.
Assist you, Inquisitor.
Another one will be right here, which is where it's at.
Half in the back.
Look up there.
The request can
Expired pretzels. Ubi cakes.
What the fuck's an ubi cake?
Shot at it.
It's like a dry sponge.
Are you sure it's not just a sponge?
The other
Oh god.
How are we supposed to survive off this, Jay? Beer can only take us so far.
kill the gladiator.
That hasn't been proven. Hey, how come most of the beer is on your side?
There's some beer right there.
They're more powerful.
Don't you see it?
No, that's a walker.
No, it's behind the walker.
There's a lampshade behind the walker.
Don't
What are
think
you
I'm not
talking-
onto you. I got all the beer, you got all the toilet paper. At some point, this is going to come to an impasse.
Well, if things get really desperate, there's alcohol in hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what else am I going to use it for?
Oh, no. Well, did you see Gretel and Hansel?
I did see Gretel and Hansel. I missed it in the theater.
You've been turned out of your home. Set out to fend for yourselves with only your clothes and your hides.
I wanted to see it. I was curious to see it because it's directed by Oz Perkins, star of Quigley.
The star of Quigley.
Yeah.
And what about the really nice move you just made on the briefcase?
When dogs have to go, they go quick. And I hurt my knee, lifting my leg to pee.
Co-star. The real star is, of course, Gary Busey.
Do you have a problem with dogs?
Yes.
But the secondary star is Oz Perkins, who has to stand next to Gary Busey and give the performance of his life, where he acts like Gary Busey is not a crazy person that falls into bushes.
How did you do that? I hope you have what it takes to solve this problem. I gotta go.
Yeah, you over here.
But you've seen Black Coat's Daughter, right?
Loved it.
That's one of my favorite horror movies.
Another Mad Men connection.
Oh yeah, the John Hamm's daughter.
Yes.
From it is on that. Yeah. So I was looking forward to this movie because of that, and it's a very good movie. It's one of those. He didn't write it. He wrote Black Coat's Daughter. He didn't write this movie, and it's one of those cases of like probably kind of like average, okay-ish script that is elevated by fantastic filmmaking. Because this is one of the most gorgeous-looking movies I've seen in a really long time. It's lots of wide lenses, great cinematography. The witch is played by the Borg Queen.
Alice Creed?
Alice Creed, yeah. She's creepy and fantastic in it. But at the end of the day, it's the story of Hansel and Gretel. They do a twist where, because it's called Gretel and Hansel, this is another one where it's like, are the trolls going to come out?
No, that to me was a brilliant idea, because I was going to watch this movie too, and I searched for Hansel and Gretel.
Oh, there's like cheapo ones on Amazon.
55 titles came up.
Yeah.
From the Jeremy Renner crap to Asylum garbage, Redbox trash.
Yeah.
But he was smart to reverse the names because then it was easier to find.
Yeah, well, and also all of his movies have been kind of female-centric. Like, obviously, Black Coat's Daughter, all the leads in that are...
I don't think there was ever a Hansel and Gretel was just sort of what it was called. I don't think there was really in the fairy tale a difference between the boy and the girl. They were just siblings, right?
Yeah, if I remember, they're like the same age or around the same age. They might be twins. I don't know. But this one, she's a little bit older, and it's more focused on her, so it's more like... It's hard not to compare it to The Witch, unfortunately. The Witch is a masterpiece, but it's like period movie focused on a young girl kind of coming of age in the backdrop of being sort of seduced or lured in by a witch. It's not The Witch, unfortunately, but it's like I said, one of the best looking movies I've seen in a really long time. It's got that great kind of like fall atmosphere. It's really atmospheric. The music's great. It's just good enough to make you wish it was better. It's one of those movies.
Like Veronica?
Like Veronica.
Cause of death? Apparent shock and loss of blood. Nice.
I have a feeling it's one of those movies, and maybe I was mildly disappointed just because I love Black Coat's Daughter so much, and this is, in a way, it's more conventional, but at the same time, the pacing of it is so slow that I can't imagine. I'm picturing like the Blumhouse crowd being like, this shit's boring.
The task you gave me.
In fact, if you look at the IMDb user reviews, it's 1 out of 10 or like 9, 10 out of 10. There's no in between, even though I'm kind of in between.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Usually that's a sign of a good movie. Do they do? See, I
had the treasured
Hansel and
logbook
Gretel. I
of
always
my
think
rogue
of
trader clan.
like a
It has
TV
been in the
movie
possession
of
of
the
my
week or
family
something
since
as a
my
kid.
ancestor
I had
received the warrant of
the
trade.
tape on a VHS tape. I'd watch
It
it.
has disappeared
And I just
when the
remember Hansel
inquisitorial
was in
purge
like a
destroyed
cage.
the clan headquarters.
Yeah, this has that element of like she keeps feeding them and feeding them. The idea is that they've been sort of disowned by their parents, so there's this kind of theme of abandonment and going out into the world and becoming your own person. The older sibling, so it's really kind of her coming of age, deciding what kind of person she wants to be, because the witch is sort of luring her in to sort of be her apprentice in a way.
Would you recommend?
I would. I think it's one of those movies that'll kind of grow on me over time because it's decent. I wish it was better, but this is the type of movie I can see watching a lot in like October. This is a good like Halloween time, fall atmosphere kind of. It's a creepy movie, but it doesn't get by completely on atmosphere. The story kind of the familiarity with the story, because Hansel and Gretel is a take. It's like making a new Robin movie. They make a new Robin movie every year.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, another one? So it has a little bit of that quality going on, but the visuals carry it a long way.
Just check yourself dry.
Pairings. Spicy food and grilled beef. Well, what about ube cakes?
I guess if these are like sponges, they'll come in handy for sanitizing things, right?
Clean some surfaces with them. There's something about this golden sweet corn.
You're in the archives,
This has been open
Inquisitor.
for 6 months.
Try to find a cogitator that can grant you access to the data vault.
This is like a never-ending hell where every day is the same thing.
Like,
kind of reminds me of that movie.
I missed the Mago.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Because insert joke here. That's the lead into Vivarium, but you say something that sounds like the plot of Vivarium, but then you say a different movie for comedic effect.
Sure, I understand.
That's the joke.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to Yonder, a wonderful development. It has all you'd need and all you'd want.
So we both watched Vivarium.
Yeah. Did you watch it because I told you to watch it? Or
No,
did
I
you
watched
watch
it before that.
Okay, that sounds something else.
No, I just watched this on my own because it sounded great. I loved the premise, and I guess you liked it more than me. I thought it started great, and then it started to get tedious, which is partially by design, I guess, because that's kind of the whole concept of the movie, but it lost me at a certain point. I loved the simplicity of the beginning of it, I love the concept of like hell or purgatory is just an endless suburbia that you can't escape. It's a little on the nose, it's a little obvious, but it works. It's a very Twilight Zone-y kind of premise.
Yes, all those things I agree with you on. The suburbia thing sort of bugged me at first because I thought it was going to go in a bad direction, in an annoying direction. I love movies where people are trapped in a thing, which my next film to watch is going to be The Platform.
You gotta watch The Platform. Platform and this are very similar in that they're great premises. The first 45 minutes or so are great, and then it starts to lose you and it gets kind of lost in its own metaphor, and then it ends and you're like, oh.
I was saying in regards to The Platform, I like movies where people are trapped in a thing and they have to figure their way out. I love movies like that because they're really engaging to me, engrossing, where I kind of just, I put, that's the thing with a movie. You're supposed to relate to the main character. You're supposed to see yourself in the movie, connect with it.
Yeah.
Feel like you're inside the movie and you're making the same choices and all the things that are happening in the movie are happening to you.
Yeah, well, in these types of movies, that sense of like discovery. where you're like slowly learning, like all the opening stuff when they're trying to leave that suburban neighborhood and they just keep driving around, and ending up back in the same place.
Yeah, you're like, try this, try that. Why aren't you trying this?
Yeah.
And when people do that, you're like, okay, great. You know, and it's a movie you can get involved with, almost interactive in a way. You're yelling at the screen, and this movie had all that, and it definitely felt like a longer episode of The Twilight Zone. This would have been the new Twilight Zone, the non-terrible Jordan Peele Twilight Zone. I would have loved if this was a 45-minute Twilight Zone episode. It would have been. I'd be like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
this.
that's my complaint, is that it's twice as long as the concept demands.
But as a feature film, it needed some more.
Yes.
And when I said, like, okay, the suburbia thing, it's like, okay, that felt high school poetry-ish, where, man, I never want to live in a cookie cutter house where all the houses look the same and have 2.5 children and a white picket fence. That's just the man trying to put us into a box. And I'm like, nah.
That's what I mean.
I'm
when I
not in
say
that mindset.
Yeah,
Not
well,
in that
that's
mindset.
when you say the premise is, like I said, it's very obvious as far as that goes, the metaphor, but it's the way it's executed and the style of it. Like the way that the suburb looks. It's
creepy.
Just like, yeah, it's creepy.
And the real estate agent
unnatural.
guy is creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy and unnatural. That works. There's a big problem with the movie. Is that
it Jesse Eisenberg?
No, Jesse Eisenberg is fine.
I thought he was miscast.
I'm trying to think of somebody else.
I don't know, maybe like a Chris Pratt. He's playing like a smart-assy type guy. He's like what does he do, like lawn care or something at the beginning of the movie?
He's like a handyman.
Yeah, and I don't buy Jesse Eisenberg as that.
Yeah, that's
as
true.
like a smart-ass, because he's kind of smart-ass.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he probably is one of the reasons the movie got greenlit.
Well, him and Imogen Poots are executive producers. But yeah, I agree. Someone who could be a little more, Chris Pratt would have been good. A little more hot-headed, a little more manly man.
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg comes off as the Weasley intellect.
Yeah, or awkward nerd.
Awkward nerd. He's perfect for a Mark Zuckerberg. you know.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you on that. The premise is held together by the characters. All we have are the two characters, right? This movie should have been 30 minutes front-loaded of character development, and then we get them to the community suburban development project, because all we learn in the beginning is that Jesse Eisenberg is the handyman. He has a ladder, and that the girl, Imogen Poots, is like a little kid teacher, a grade school teacher, and she's teaching them about wind or something.
Yeah.
And then they jump right into it, and then it drags out.
Yeah.
What we really needed was, there was a point too where there's a bird that falls off the tree, a bird that had fallen out of the nest and died, and a little girl is like, "What happened to this bird? It's dead." And she's like, "Yeah, that's nature. Fuck it. You know, that's what happens." And then Jesse Eisenberg's character takes the time to bury the bird. And I thought these were very important character details, but it turns out later they become the opposite.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, Jesse Eisenberg is going to be the more grounded, sensitive one, and she's going to be more of the cutthroat, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But it turns out when they're given a baby, she becomes ultra protective over it, and he becomes the monster who says, "Just fucking kill the kid."
Right.
It's
not a real kid.
And so it's like, why did you set that up in reverse?
Yeah.
I was really confused by that, but if it was a movie about this budding relationship between two people, and them kind of making that transition from being boyfriend girlfriend into being husband wife and starting a family. Then thrust into the situation where they have to be a family with a baby and all the shit that comes with it, how they deal with that in this nightmare Twilight Zone-ish scenario, how they interact and deal with that would have been fascinating. but we didn't get enough of their character's backstory. And what
Yeah.
we did get was opposite of how they reacted in the world.
Right. And then with the way they react in the world with the child and stuff, that's kind of the rest of the movie is, it gets kind of one note because it's just sort of that same idea over and over. She wants to protect the kid, he is grown distant. He starts, I guess out of desperation, he starts digging a hole in the yard, which again becomes, like, because that ends up, spoilers, that he ends up basically digging his own grave, which feels like a comment on, like, living in suburbia, so it's all kind of obvious. But if it was a really good, like, character drama, that would have worked.
Maybe they'll let us go.
What if they don't come?
I think this was based on a short story, or based on a short film by the same director, and I can see it working really well as a short film. But then when you stretch it out to a feature, it's like, oh, what else do we do?
Well, ultimately, what's the point, though?
Yeah, exactly. It gets,
I
it
didn't
gets
see the
lost in
short.
like esoteric stuff at the end,
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, but why?
You don't have that scene where either him or her she wants to get married,
Hostile unit down.
have kids, and
Rinse
move to the
repeat.
suburbs.
In the
He
name of
wants
the
to still
Emperor,
be
of
young
course.
people living in the city and going out to bars at night.
Yeah.
You know, they have two different ideas of where their relationship is going, and they conflict on that. And I mean, her parents hate him, his parents hate her. Blah 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 blah. All this stuff that's going on in their personal lives. Then they're thrust and they're stuck in this situation.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of The Invisible Man movie, where we don't need all that backstory, we get it all from Elizabeth Moss in that opening scene.
Yeah.
And then this movie, it's like, oh, we need a lot of that before you thrust him into the situation.
Yeah. Let's take Scarlett Johansson and Kylo from A Marriage Story. Throw him in, what's his name? Adam Driver. Throw him into the Vivarium premise. And
There you go, yeah. The first half of Marriage Story that turns into Vivarium, then you got a movie.
Okay, we're gonna go find a house. You and our son.
What's this development looks so fucking cookie cutter? I'm a free spirit. I want a house that's a classic farmhouse, 5 acres.
No, to get this house, it's in our budget.
And they end up in Vivarium. And Kylo Ren has to dig in the ground and just nuts.
But you and I both know you chose this life. You wanted it until you didn't.
Scarlett Johansson gets crazy and they start fighting.
You're fucking insane.
Then they figure out that Palpatine's behind it all. His clone has been controlling their neighborhood for eons.
The First Order was just the beginning. I will give you so much more.
You're such a dick!
I heard you watched a horror film too.
I did. One of the scariest films I've ever seen. It was called The Boy Two Brahms.
I understand that some of Jude's behaviors would be upsetting, but I urge you to find a place where he feels safe. I think it will be good for him.
What? I watched it.
Well, let me ask you this. This is spoilers for The Boy. The whole thing with The Boy is like, ooh, it's a creepy doll. Is the doll alive? And then it turns out, oh, there's a guy in the walls. He's been moving the doll around. So that's the revelation at the end of the first movie. How the fuck do you make a sequel to that?
Well, very poorly. Now, yeah, The Boy, the premise is in the first one, creepy, porcelain-faced little boy doll. And there's an older couple, an elderly couple, and they invite a nanny to come to the house to babysit their son. And, first she's like, is this a joke? And then...
All I remember is at one point the elderly couple walks into the sea.
They both commit suicide at the end because their real son, he got burnt up in a fire or something bad happened to him that, oh no, he killed someone and they...
Oh yeah.
I don't know, some sort of cover up and then he ended up living in the walls.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie, the question was, is the doll alive and moving? Or is the babysitter lady going crazy? What's the real truth? We discover that it's just a doll. There's a boy in the wall. Or
Now
a
a
man.
man,
Now
yeah.
a man in the walls. And
This should have been the second one should have been a prequel. It could have been a coming of age story.
well, here's what happens.
Oh no.
Katie Holmes stars in this film.
Shit! Another prank? Why do you have to keep doing this?
It's a long way down.
She escaped Scientology for this, and she stars in the film. I guess she lives in London, and she has a British husband and a little boy. And they have a traumatic incident in their house where the husband's away at work and they get burglarized. And so the son then refuses to talk because he's been traumatized. He won't speak. He'll just draw on a paper and tell you. So it's like they speak to a therapist. And after a while, the husband goes, let's go out to a vacation home and take some time away from the city, and maybe he'll heal. And you need to heal too, Katie Holmes, because she got hit in the head with like a statue and knocked out, and blood was coming out of her.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she needed to heal because she was traumatized from being in Jack and Jill.
So they go to a vacation house, which is a smaller house on the property of the Brahms mansion.
Okay.
Do you remember the big mansion in the old house? It's in disrepair now, and it's abandoned. And they go for a walk in the woods, and the little boy finds the Brahms doll buried in the woods. But now the doll is inexplicably alive. Its head turns, you see it smile.
It's actually alive now?
It moves and it's alive. It's now Chucky. I'm not kidding. Katie Holmes does a little investigating, trying to figure out the origin of the doll. She looks at its feet, to try to find a serial number on it, and then you see it like going, smiling, and then it unsmiles because the doll is like telling the kid, Brahms made me do it, and
the doll doesn't talk, does it?
No.
Okay.
No, the doll does not talk.
That'd be a step too far.
Right.
Isn't that just Child's Play? The first Child's Play movie is that.
It's very similar.
Okay.
Very similar. It's a bunch of blah, gray, middle of the road blah. It flips over the table. So they're wondering if the kid is expressing his trauma through the doll, and then over time, Katie Holmes starts to believe that the doll is alive.
Okay. Is there an explanation as to why the doll is alive now?
Well, let me just tell you this. They get to the end. There's an ending that feels like it was a reshoot. There's a little bit where, okay, she goes onto an antique doll website.
I thought you were going to say she goes on to Antiques Roadshow. Brings out Brahms.
That would have been really great. She goes onto an antique style website and she looks at the number imprinted on the foot, right? And it's 606H. So she types in 606H and nothing comes up. And later in the film she goes, wait a minute, 909H. Or sorry, H606 909H.
Sure.
And then she types it in.
Nilbog, it's goblin spelled backwards.
Right!
Look! It's goblin spelled backwards!
And so she types it in and she finds that the doll has this long history. So they're setting up a universe, or at least they're attempting to, where, 1972, 1898, all these incidents where the doll is at the center of a family drama where the son murders the family.
Okay.
And so
it's not just a random doll that was in this house when a boy killed someone and then fled to live in the walls.
No, they're taking a page from the Annabelle playbook, where you can go Annabelle comes home, Annabelle begins, the origin of Annabelle during the dinosaurs, Annabelle versus the dinosaurs, Annabelle, versus the Roman Empire.
Why was it alive in this one and not the first movie, though?
But there is more.
Maybe it was. We just never saw it on camera.
They're doing a little retcon thing to kind of make this a universe.
Oh Lord.
That boy movie must have made some money.
I think it was probably like a super low budget and made a shitload of money.
But then at the very end, they're like, Brahms is gone. She finds out the truth. And then they go try to find Brahms, right? And then they find him in the old mansion. And he takes the groundskeeper and he makes him levitate, and then he makes the fire, the oven explode with fire, and Brahms is doing some stuff, and the husband comes in with a bat, or actually I think he has a cricket paddle, or no, I'm sorry, croquet.
Oh.
It's a croquet mallet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, all you British folk out there. Croquet mallet, and the husband takes it and he hits Brahms in the head and shatters his head, and underneath the Brahms porcelain head is a little monster face, and he has red eyes and a butthole mouth. And
you
he
could
looks
be
like,
making all this up, and I wouldn't know the difference.
he looks like a corpse, and he's some sort of entity or alien
that lived inside the doll.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
That's for the next film, I guess.
Yeah, and who didn't live inside the doll in the previous movie? Because the previous movie, I think they smashed him. But in the movie's defense, it wasn't a 10%er. I mean, it wasn't.
It sounds like it.
It was until the very end where you have like questions about what is the origin of this evil, and it's a little nebulous and vague.
Yeah.
Until then, you're like, okay, it's an all right movie. That's well shot and decently acted and moving along with a couple of jump scares. I mean, horror movies are just terrible nowadays.
The studio ones. There's a lot of really great smaller movies.
It could barely qualify as a horror movie.
It's kind of like the model of like, it's like inverse, because right now like independent horror movies are really good and the studio horror movies are terrible, because the studio horror movies just like have filler. It's just like padding, like, well, what do we got to put in this to make it a feature-length movie, and then we'll sprinkle in some jump scares. That's what the old like independent like low-budget horror movies used to be. And now it's completely opposite. That's true.
Did Brahms the Boy 2 play in theaters?
It did. I don't know if it made money.
I can't imagine seeing that
paid
in
money
theater.
to see this.
Going out to the movies and paying full price, like opening weekend, and watching this trash. I mean, it's bad. It's competent, but uncreative. There's no kills in it. There's no real scares.
Yeah.
I am hoping for a Brahms versus Annabelle crossover.
We need to revive the very short-lived versus trend from about 15 years ago.
Can we get David F. Sandberg on board to direct this?
I think he's moved past that stuff now. Yeah. He made a short film recently, since everyone's in quarantine, because that's how he started, was making like short YouTube movies. And he did one recently that was pretty well done. And then he made a behind-the-scenes thing about it. His YouTube channel is worth checking out.
Yeah, no, I liked, he had a video about Shazam.
This exterior location is scheduled to shoot early on. And turns out we don't have Faith, who plays Darla, because she's still on another show. She'll be available when we shoot the interior on a soundstage, but she won't be available here. Let's say she was really slow with tying her shoes, so she never got outside in time.
Here's why they didn't hang their coats up.
Yeah.
Because I had to get them back out here because we couldn't shoot this scene. He's like, look, when you actually make a movie, all these little things that you don't think of happen.
Every movie, there's like 100 decisions that have to be made every minute by all these different people.
But anyway, Annabelle versus Brahms.
The whole idea with both of them, well, I guess now Brahms moves inexplicably, even though he didn't in the first movie. But Annabelle's like a vessel for other horror. Annabelle never moves. So how do you do a versus movie where you have two dolls that don't move?
No, they just sit there and they stare at each other.
They conjure up other creatures, and no, they just sit there. Okay.
It's just back and forth for 2 hours.
No much.
If a studio could get away with that, they would.
Just people in the back. Brown like, honey, I'm going to the grocery store to get groceries. You can start dinner.
Just
okay.
mundane stuff.
Mundane, like, yeah.
It's like that experimental movie Wavelength. Have you ever heard of that? It's a pretty famous one. It's just a wide shot of a room, and it very slowly zooms in and goes across the room until it's like an hour long, and then it gets to the end, and it's just a close-up of a photo. It's on the other side of the room. It's like that, but just put Annabelle and Brahms in the room. Yeah, we won't do a zoom. Okay. We'll do a true dolly. Took me a minute.
Yeah. And, the very end of the frame is Brahms and Annabelle, right? A 90-minute long dolly going, I don't know, super slow. Yeah. And ladies walking back with laundry, kids running up and down the stairs doing homework. And at the very end, they just go and attack each other, and then cuts the credits.
Yeah. And then people go, oh my God, I jumped at the end. What a great movie. All I remember is the very end.
The last, maybe the last 30 seconds is just like insane fighting. Like as they go down to hell, they're falling into hell. All the effects, all the action.
It makes everybody forget the last 90 minutes.
That would be the ultimate film experiment.
Yeah.
Couple comes in. Maybe there's a little a domestic argument between the husband and wife.
Whatever you got to do to fill time.
About bills or something.
Yeah. They're arguing about when they'll get their stimulus check. They drag each other down to hell through a vortex, and it's like a CGI extravaganza for 30 seconds.
Minute. We'll give it a minute.
Okay.
And then we end on a Rage Against the Machine song.
Obviously.
Directed by David F. Sandberg. That was fucking awesome!
I don't even dare to
Annabelle
ask
versus
why
Brahms.
an Inquisitor is handling this. I mark the distress beacons and the extraction zone.
Well, I guess we're all caught up on the things we've been watching during the quarantine.
Yeah.
Stay on your side, I'll stay on mine. We'll go back to watching stuff.
Yeah. I'm gonna tune in here to Amazon or Netflix.
Can you do that with a dial?
Yeah, well, I got to change the inputs.
Oh, okay.
Netflix and chill, as the kids say, right? I guess I'm gonna watch some stuff.
Still got some of the good stuff here.
We're gonna meet on the podium. Right here. Stand. You guys gotta come up here.
So what are you watching?
Get to one of these symbols.
Oh, Tiger King again.
Oh.
It's the only thing on.
Yeah.
Because Netflix works like a TV station where I can't choose what to watch.
Yeah. You know they say if you're sitting for longer than an hour, you should get up and stretch your legs. This is what I'm gonna do right now.
Oh, I've been sitting for 47 hours.
Oh yeah, I gotta stretch my legs.
Okay.
You give me that Woodford Reserve. Oh, fuck!
Here we are. Let's examine.
Cut the credits.
We have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. We're
let's-
speechless.
I was speechless during most of this film, yeah.
I just want to examine the choices that led us here. Because we watched this movie for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
It's because we're familiar with things.
Jay and I are on the record as being big fans.
I am pro things.
Yes.
We are anti-things.
I have said before that Attack of the Clones is the worst movie relative to its budget. And the reason I put the disclaimer relative to its budget when I talk about bad movies is because Things was the actual worst movie I had ever seen.
But emphasis on was.
Was.
We should point out Things. We did that on Half in the Bag.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And then the Things take over the house, and our characters wander around and occasionally worry about it in between sitting in the kitchen and wanting to drink beer or take naps.
The Things, they sit on the stove, or they sit on the toilet, or they sleep in the basement.
That's it.
Long time ago, we talked about Things because we used to watch it on our movie nights, which is what led to Best of the
That
Worst.
was the precursor to Best of the Worst. Yeah. Oddly enough, that Half in the Bag episode, we brought Palpatine into it.
That's right.
Once more, I will place an ad on crazy shit.
And now Palpatine is dead because Rey deflected his lightning bolts back in his face.
Into his face.
Until he gets reincarnated again in the next sequel, right? You know,
My point is, we brought Palpatine back before Disney. But we said, oh, okay, Things, love or hate it, it's a very fascinating movie. And so we said, hey, let's do a spotlight on director Barry J. Gillis's new film. It just came out on Blu-ray. It had never seen the light of day before.
It was never released, and I don't know why. I'm not sure.
I must say, you make quite the hot dog, sweetheart.
Oh, yeah, well, we could say this is from the good people at AGFA, who are film preservers.
What are AGFA?
They're like film
American
preservers.
Genre Film Archive.
Okay.
And after this, can they be now classified as a terrorist organization?
Possibly.
I came prepared for this. I actually wore my Caliber Press Surviving Edged Weapons t-shirt because I was afraid after watching this I might want to cut myself.
Rich, if we learned anything from this film, it's that violence just creates more violence.
But violence is unavoidable, Jay.
But don't hurt yourself, like poor Barry J. Gillis at the end of this film. Spoilers.
Have hope. Have hope for the computer chips that will remove all violence from society.
Implanted in your brains by the U.S. government.
Coming soon.
Even though today.
Oh my god. This is insane. This is insane.
There is still hope. Don't commit suicide. You can get a chip implanted in your
There
brain.
is still hope that somebody can make a computer chip that will control us. That's the hope.
Do you think that was the seed of the idea? Because that's at the end of the movie. Barry J. Gillis commits suicide, and then we get this text. Was that like he heard about that somewhere, and that was the seed that planted the idea of this film in his brain?
There's all sorts of crazy going on in this film.
Yeah.
The best part of that, though, is the positive spin on having a chip implanted in your brain to control your actions.
Yeah, no more violence.
Usually that's the paranoid thing. Oh my God, they're going to put the chips in our brains. Not this film.
Yeah, Barry J. Gillis is like, everybody relax.
Yeah.
Your mind is going to be controlled, and everything will be good.
Well, it's a very Canadian spin on a conspiracy theory.
Yes, that's true.
Well, the film is not just about suicide violence. It's generalized murder. There's some lobotomies. There's suicide pacts in it. There's a guy in a wheelchair who's trying to mug a guy who's walking.
Yes.
Is he mugging the guy in a wheelchair?
No, the guy in the wheelchair was trying to mug him.
Oh, that's not a good idea.
There's attempted murder that gets interrupted by another murderer.
Uh-huh.
That's the famous opening scene of the film.
And a wonderful message about abstinence.
What the fuck?
Jesus.
You tell your brother to leave?
That's where he lives.
He's definitely in the same room. Those are the
Oh,
same
he's
end
on the other.
tables.
I think he's right out of frame.
He's supposed to be on the other side of the table.
He's somewhere between 3 feet and 5 miles away.
It could be in another house with coincidentally the same furniture.
Sure.
And
This is actually, he's watching this on TV. It just looks like the exact same room.
oh,
He's got a gun.
uh-oh.
And that's the penitence of my greed.
Oh.
What the fuck is
Oh, they're at a
Neil
house party.
Patrick Harris? Couple making out on a couch, gets super naked. The guy, there's all sorts of pelvic thrusting going
And
on.
this guy just watching. And we don't know where this guy is in relation to anything.
Yeah, because there's no establishing shot.
He has a gun in his pocket for some reason.
He keeps taking it in and out of his pocket. He's not sure when to use it.
This is the worst family reunion ever.
This is a wild sex party.
Oh, that's the killer. Oh,
Not that kind of girl.
She wants to save it for marriage.
So then after his sister, who's been grinding on this guy for like the last 10 minutes, gets up and walks away to take a shower, you know, in the middle of their makeout session.
Right,
In the middle of a party.
Then the brother stands up and says, "Are you fucking my sister?"
To which I believe the answer is not right now.
Yeah. Well, she proclaims like, oh, well, we've gone far enough tonight. She's taken everything off.
I'm stripped completely naked in front of her friends.
Oh, and the whole time there's a guy wearing a gas mask just standing in the window.
Just over there.
Right there for everybody to see.
Yeah.
But they don't see him. That's for we see it as an audience. We know it's
Because
happening.
they don't turn around.
But they clearly see him.
No, but they don't.
They don't.
They clearly see he's
I know,
right
he's
there.
He's very visible.
You can't miss him.
He's extremely. He's lit very well, but no, they don't see. Apparently, one I think is the answer here. What?
Oh my god!
What the fuck just happened?
Your command.
Yeah, after I read this message.
But then Michael Cera starts shooting everyone in the room with a little tiny cap gun.
It was about this big.
Yes.
This is when we're introduced to the experimental editing techniques of the film.
Oh my god!
What the fuck?
What a spooky night.
The guy says, "Don't kill her, kill me." Shoot, and then the girl pleads with him that she wants to be an actress or a singer,
And she's
or
too young
possibly
to
a model.
die.
Oh, she wants to be an actress. I got bad news for you, honey.
You're in a Barry J. Gillis production.
This is where acting careers come to die.
So he shoots her, and he's just about to shoot himself, when all of a sudden, the guy with the gas mask is indoors.
Well, he awkwardly kind of rubs his arms around the brother with the gun's neck.
And
that
there's-
kills him somehow.
Yeah, there's a googly googly noise on the soundtrack.
It's an attempt at style. That's what I'll say about this movie. There's lots of attempts at some sort of style.
That's why I say this movie reminded me of like the love child between Ed Wood, John Waters, and Quentin Tarantino.
Sure.
There's attempts at style. There's attempts at Tarantino. It's not linear. It's trying to be stylish. I don't know what it is, but something about the nurse and the guy in the wheelchair and playing around with the handcuffs just made me think of John Waters, and I'm not entirely sure why.
Well, it has that, like, it's grungy looking.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a home movie, but they're trying to make a movie.
And then Ed Wood because it sucks.
Now you're for the Emperor!
Well, before we do that, just the general synopsis is the old guy, he just finds groups of people and then he kills them over and over and over again, intercut with the wheelchair section. And then near the end, there's a crooked cop who wants revenge. That's the overview.
Yeah.
The Newt Gingrich is the killer. Barry J. Gillis is the cop. His ex-girlfriend gets killed by the killer, and he goes after revenge in present day. And present day is the killer in the wheelchair.
Now there are possibly 2 cops or 3. There
are definitely at least 2.
Yeah. Barry J. Gillis plays the frozen meat store robber. Oh no, you're gonna suffocate.
No, that's not for babies. It's not for babies.
That's not how that works! you're doing it wrong, sir! That plastic ran out his head!
Oh, didn't lock the... No,
He sounds like the Mandalorian.
And he never takes that plastic bag off his head.
It's part of my code of ethics.
This is the way.
This is the way. Oh God! And then there's the cop who lives next door to Newt Gingrich and his wife and his daughter.
That's also Barry J. Gillis.
That's also Barry J. Gillis.
How you doing? I'm your new next door neighbor. I thought I'd introduce myself.
What the fuck was that?
The movie's broken.
He's moved in just after Newt Gingrich's 3 daughters have committed suicide.
We know all this because somebody in the shot says it, but we don't know who.
The wife does. She goes, he's in a bad mood because last week all 3 of his daughters killed themselves. Would you like a hot dog?
Don't mind my husband, Harold. His 3 daughters from his first marriage committed suicide this week. And he hates everything now more than ever. And he especially hates how we send money to other countries when people on our own streets are starving to death.
What is this?
Oh, are they in a crime-ridden neighborhood?
Is that what that
is? Is that just the background?
Is that what's supposed to be happening?
There was like a lion or something.
I thought it was a war zone.
I am fucking lost.
I think they're just living in a bad neighborhood.
I'm your new neighbor. Give me a hot dog. Bye.
Sorry, all 3 of your daughters committed suicide last week.
Newt is watering the grass, and he's like, "Why did you tell him about my daughters?" And she's like, "Fuck you, I'm leaving you." And then they go in the
Meanwhile,
house.
audio from World War II is playing.
It's
water.
It's like you just had this footage of these people in the backyard and made a scene with voiceover.
Yeah, that's possible.
18 Roger.
I want to see that neighborhood.
What?
I don't know how much more of this I can take. It's giving me anxiety.
He leaves after getting his hot dog. Many scenes later, I think it's the same cop who, with his partner, solicit a prostitute.
This is more social commentary.
Yes.
Hello, you beautiful people, and well.
Lucky to be alive. There is more that needs your help.
This is surveillance footage?
But only because, you know, they have such a large...
Extraction zone reached. All survivors are accounted for. Well done. Stand by for retrieval.
Alright. The not be that bad. And then we are nearly at the end of this mission, fun fact. That was quick.
He says something about we're going to make a lot of money off of this tape.
Yes, and there's a person videotaping. It's a police surveillance tape that the chief is showing them.
So
caught them
this
in the act, murdering a
safety.
prostitute.
And taping it.
And taping it,
intentionally.
yes, intentionally to try to set up the guys on the roof who are smoking pot.
Is that his voice coming out, or is that on speakerphone?
I think it's speakerphone now. I'm really not sure what's going on.
But we don't want the black community? What is he talking about?
Political things. The mayor's saying political things and worrying about the political ramifications of things.
Yes.
Of what? Who's this now?
It's the same audio again?
But the gruff mayor or whoever it is on the voiceover is saying, like, we don't want the black community to get upset.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was mainly the black guy because he's the one who targeted and he was like punching them.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Oh, Jesus.
What the?
I want your badges and your guns.
So I think that was just out of context. That was just also in this wicked world is police corruption.
Yeah.
And police planting evidence and being racist.
Yeah.
That was one piece of this whole wicked world, and it had nothing to do with anything else in the movie.
And so that's when Barry leaves after having been fired. Apparently has sex with 3 different women off screen. Goes home and finds his murdered girlfriend.
He shoots Newt Gingrich like 100 times in the chest, but he survives and ends up in a mental hospital where they give him a lobotomy, and then he gets pushed around a children's playground.
This is all explained in a non-linear fashion.
And awkwardly handcuffed to a slide, like painstakingly.
Oh, God.
Move
Rail
this,
by
move
rail,
this,
move him up, move the handcuff, reattach up there after the other bar, and then slowly get him up to the
But then
top.
ultimately, when it's time for him to slide down, she just unlocks the fucking cuffs anyway, and then he just slides down.
That was his moment to escape.
Well, he had a lobotomy.
He doesn't. He's not going anywhere.
I know.
That's a damn good question.
I guess that does confirm though, because the whole movie there's a voiceover narration,
Yes.
and it's like a fake British accent. And we were never sure who it was, but I think in that scene you do hear the voiceover say, "I hate slides."
Yeah, and when she
so that
pushes him-
voiceover is him.
When she pushes him in front of the swings, I hate swings.
Yeah.
I hate nurses. So it's got to be.
But he's also talking about what's going on like it's a fictional story. And that's not a narration of what happened.
Yeah.
That's a narration of what you want to happen as told from the present about things that have already happened.
Maybe this is a cautionary tale about the use of chips in your brain to quell your violence. Maybe he was the first recipient of it.
When he's in the baby swing, we also get text on the screen.
Yes.
That's another time that happens.
Yeah.
That happened initially when Newt Gingrich follows some. fun havers out to the lake.
Yes.
Where they meet up with some other fun havers.
Let's set that scene up. That's an
Okay.
important sequence.
I think it is.
They're having a lovely day out.
Yeah. It's coming up, kids. It's important to note that the one girl, they're both wearing their bathing suits under their clothing.
Yes.
But the one girl climbs onto an unstable log in order to remove her clothes.
I think he just wanted to get a low shot of her. That's the only thing I can think of that makes any kind of sense out of disrobing on a
Yeah.
log.
Okay, now go over there and rub your friend with whiskey.
I was thinking it was honey.
We didn't bring any.
They're trying to attract bears.
So, and during this whole time, by the way, the soundtrack is just cranked.
It tickles. It's cool.
It's all very natural.
Extremely natural.
It's a literal wild track. It's because it's animals.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
So,
We all get it.
yeah.
Laugh. Laugh at my jokes.
Oh, I can't wait to get you alone in the woods. Get that bathing suit out.
Oh no.
How romantic.
This is how Canadians court.
They have to find a better spot to have sex in.
They want to be private in the dirty weeds with ticks and poison ivy.
Yeah, they go off to get Lyme disease.
One girl goes off, but there's just text at the top of the screen that says, and she's not very faithful to her boyfriend.
What the?
What?
Oh,
Who is that in reference to?
the girl who's going to get the frisbee now. They have to give a reason why Newt Gingrich is going to kill her.
This is unprecedented.
What?
And he forgot. This is unprecedented. How bad this is. Yeah.
The question is, though, why was it text on a screen?
Because they didn't have line and they didn't have a way of communicating.
Does it even make a difference, though?
Why did they have him overdub it like he's been overdubbing everything else?
He could have had the British guy say she cheated on her man. Yeah, see, here she gets her comeuppance for cheating on her man.
But how does he know that she does that?
Well, we have the second party scene. There's first party scene, and then there's
Right.
second party scene where they're playing the Irish music.
And they get done watching Things.
Yes. they're
Oh
watching
yeah,
things.
we see a lot of things.
A guy is slow dancing with a girl, and then a ginger kid is weightlifting.
Yeah, and this is after there was the couple that went to have sex, kind of.
Oh, they were so
boring.
excited.
Oh, the boring sex. Okay, we'll have sex now.
Don't look that excited about it. Oh, she just changed it.
Oh. They are having sex.
They are.
She's just very bored about it. So is he.
Yeah.
Oh. He's there too.
Whoops.
Couldn't even be bothered to try.
Yeah. Can we talk about how quiet this killer is?
Yeah.
How unnoticed he goes throughout the entire movie. No one hears him going, through the woods, which certainly would have some sort of noises associated with it.
Well, it was drowned out by all the geese and frogs.
That's fair.
He somehow makes the victims quiet too. When he kills the bored sex couple, they don't make a noise.
Oh, well, they're that boring.
He's got brand new memory foam shoes. They got at the old folks' home.
He fires guns. Nobody hears his guns.
That's right.
Look, it's a wicked world. People are so used to these sounds they don't even react to it anymore.
That's true.
So it's
that might actually be it.
It's a wicked world.
Part of the motif in the film. Now, can we talk about Newt Gingrich's therapist? because that's a whole other ball.
I don't know where this is in the timeline of events either. I have no clue. Is that the psychiatrist?
Yeah.
That's how you talk to a patient?
No, I would never hurt anyone. Not unless it was good.
The therapist sits on the couch with me.
It calls you a sick fuck.
This is before we saw the bad cops kill with the prostitute and get fired. It was before we saw that.
This is after Slide, but before Swing.
Is
that true?
He was in the wheelchair, and the narration said, "Wait, I want to take out a scene with the cop, and I want to have a scene with the psychiatrist instead."
What kind of problem? Do you have other patients like me, or am I the only one with such wicked thoughts?
Breach is
I actually
imminent.
feel like I'm
The
gonna throw up.
subject is insufficiently augmented
Right.
to survive a violent interaction. I advise east. Target secured. Basic order.
That's some good therapy.
Reach the
Hey.
extraction
She's
zone
direct.
for
That's
subatomic
what
motor displacement.
therapy is missing.
Oh
my god! Oh.
Two girls. Bye-bye.
When does the chase take place? Before or after? Or no, because he kills
He kills her in
the therapy session.
So she still had the therapy session with him, even though he tried to murder her in a dirty warehouse.
I guess.
It seems that way.
We're cutting back and forth between these two events.
Yeah.
The most important thing is that she's a very terrible therapist.
Terrible?
She's like, you're fucking crazy, dude.
The guy has no qualms about shooting people.
No.
But for some reason, as therapist, he chokes with a doctor's coat.
He's not very choosy about his methods.
No.
Like
There's a lot of different methods.
Yeah, there's the bat, there's the gun.
Machete.
Yeah.
He seems to prefer choking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He double chokes the couple that are dancing.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works,
It's
but
not possible. Whoops.
They just don't even notice.
Wait.
It doesn't work that way.
I mean, he'd be protected by his hockey hair first off.
This movie should have starred David Carradine. Because he's such a good actor.
Yeah. Yeah, you really would about some gravitas,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
David Carradine didn't enjoy choking other people, Rich. He enjoyed choking himself.
You don't know that, Mike.
well, he didn't enjoy it at the end.
Now you'll pay, scum! Maggots die!
I can never forget.
Oh my God!
Mike, you're missing so much! You're missing everything! You've missed everything that happened! All of the things!
So the killer is going to be let out of prison or out of the institute, wherever he is, and Barry J. Gillis said he's going to kill him.
Okay.
And his Indian girlfriend said, "No, don't kill him. Get over it." And then he shot her. He shot her in the face.
because he can never forget.
He can never forget. I'm trying to think. I mean, the way we're explaining it, it sounds like it makes sense, but the events that we're explaining do not happen in chronological order.
No.
It's very confusing.
We find out all this stuff about the cop Barry J. Gillis way towards the end.
Yeah, that's like in the last half hour.
Yeah.
Though it would make sense if all the events were tied together. I was wondering about Newt's 3 daughters and the reason
Oh, yeah.
for their suicide pact. It's mentioned earlier on, and then later on we see a scene where there's 2 women in the woods. One looks like she just came from the gym. One looks like she just came from a corporate job.
Yep.
She's got high heels on and like stockings and
Black
just,
skirt.
Like, the black skirt. She looks professional. And we're like, and they're roasting marshmallows. And then we discover Barry J. Gillis has a marshmallow fetish, which is now a thing.
Eat him slower.
The lady is eating a whole partially melted marshmallow.
Yeah, well then there's the other shot. There's the shot of Newt Gingrich with all the pudding falling out of his mouth.
Oh God!
Yes.
Oh, that's the most disgusting thing in the film.
It is.
Yeah.
Stop feeding him!
Get in there!
But anyway, the three women, or the two women are there at the campfire. The other one's coming down the hill, and what's going on?
Well, we thought it was the prostitute that got
yeah.
beat up.
It might have been the same actress.
Who knows?
But she has a package hidden in the woods. I thought it was heroin because we thought it was a prostitute. Turns out it was a gun, a child's water gun Uzi that they used to all commit suicide.
It turns out these are the daughters of Newt Gingrich.
No, not like that.
Oh no,
That's not where you kill yourself.
Jeez.
Ah, it worked.
Suckers!
What brought them to that point?
I don't know.
What is the scene?
Because
where
it's a wicked world.
Where do we see Newt Gingrich actually snap? When does that happen?
Oh, well, that happens when his wife is about to leave him after he's watering the lawn.
That's his breaking point.
That's his breaking point.
She gave away one of his hot dogs.
And he talked to another. Or she talked to another man.
Oh, right.
He's like, I said you shouldn't talk to another man. She's like, we're leaving, and then he shoots them indoors.
Yeah. you hear horrible sounds coming from their house. A little girl too.
And oh, that's the other thing is that endless crying in that scene that doesn't seem to be actually attached to the little girl. And every time that Newt Gingrich is chasing a woman, there's just every scream sound effect that Barry J. Gillis can conjure up.
That's in the random dorm room scene.
Where he delivers a pizza box filled with guts.
There's two girls arguing about something, and we can't tell because it's recorded on Thomas Edison's first recorder.
It's too bad the only microphone they had was a telephone right there.
Sounds like a 911 call.
And then Newt Gingrich comes in with a pizza delivery.
Double-wide pizza box.
Yeah, we see the actual pizza that the crew or the actors
Whatever was in the
removed.
box, they took it out so they could put the guts in, but they just left it in the shot. And this is where he gets his famous gas mask.
Ooh,
it's hanging in this dorm room kitchen for some reason.
He gets it halfway through the movie. He was using it near the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's non-linear. It's a story. That's where you get the Tarantino reference.
Yeah.
This film is very much like Pulp Fiction in the way that it's.
You said that with a straight face.
I did that for comical effect.
Oh, what part is it where he's hacking someone up and we get like a green screen arm?
Yeah. Oh,
I can't even remember what
I
part
have
that
no
is.
idea what part that is, but it totally happens.
It's a visual that's in my brain, and I have no idea what the context is.
I think it's one of those early kills.
I know.
Maybe.
I know he's
Early
not
on.
using a knife, and that's the strange thing because the arm flies off.
This is clearly an early video toaster kind of edit situation because he's doing those swirl effects.
Yeah,
and
there's
some-
lots of digital zooms.
Super cheap. Before it's I guess it might be before non-linear editing. It's 91.
I don't know. The movie is pretty non-linear.
Teleport beacon in range.
He took that term too literal.
Oh boy.
You mean I have to make my film non-linear?
All right. It's the coming thing.
If you say so. then he still edits it tape to tape.
Maybe he just edited the movie in order of the scenes that were shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you don't shoot a movie in order, so maybe he just edited in the order that he filmed the scenes, and that's why it doesn't make any sense.
That's a real good theory, and anything's possible.
It's the best theory we have.
Well, we should mention that Barry J. Gillis, he did a rough cut of this film back in the 90s when he made it, and it was not up to par. He did not think it was good enough, and that's why it didn't get released until now.
You know what? I give the man full credit for that.
He still made the movie, though.
And here it is now for us to see.
Yeah.
It's so rare. One of our favorite bad filmmakers is self-aware.
Well, I don't know how self-aware he is.
Mildly. Even the amount.
He thought Things was good enough to release.
Yes.
Murder is written all over your face.
I have possibly the most difficult question I have ever asked.
I know what it is.
What?
Which is worse? This or Things?
No.
No?
Oh, that's easy.
Which is more nonsensical, this or Demon Cop?
Ooh.
Demon Cop.
Is it?
It's very close.
Yeah, this feels like a movie that was made in its entirety by one person, unlike Demon Cop, which is a bunch of shit edited together. So this is a little more cohesive, a little bit.
But it doesn't end with a man in a rubber suit throwing around patio furniture.
No, this is not as entertaining as the last 20 minutes of Demon Cop. But which is worse, this or Things? And which is a hard one to say because I think we all think Things is terrible, but some of us enjoy the terribleness of Things.
Boy, in order to answer that question properly, it's been a long time since I've seen Things. I would probably need to rewatch Things. So in order to avoid rewatching Things, I'm going to declare that this is worse.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm with Rich. Yeah. Things had a through storyline.
Yeah.
And motivation.
Dummies go to a cabin and there's ant monsters. Got it.
And they want to live.
Yeah.
And I am not trying to be a contrarian and doing, but I like this better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there is much, and they're both nonsensical and they're both frustrating, but this has so many more different kinds of scenes, lots of different characters and locations and things going on and laughable moments. Things is all in that fucking house.
That's true.
And it's all dark and I hate Things.
Wicked
And
World
so
has.
I like Wicked World much more.
It has a lot going on.
Yeah.
It definitely kept us engaged because we were constantly trying to figure it out.
Yeah. There is no grading scale that can possibly make sense of this.
Yeah. Well, I know at the end of Things, the credit comes up that says you have just experienced things. And this is similar to that, where it's like, I don't know what the fuck happened, but it was an experience.
And a nice thing to note, and it's not really a nice thing, but you watch something like this, and you could think about how easily someone like Barry J. Gillis could make a movie about a slasher with a gas mask who just kills teenagers in the woods. But
very generic, typical.
Yes,
yeah.
and he uses the context of the movie to get women to get naked in the shower, and then we've all seen that.
Yeah.
But he's putting in some heavy philosophical ideas about society and violence and guns
attempts at
and,
social commentary.
And commentary
yeah.
and
nonlinear storytelling. And, yeah.
Microchips.
Microchips.
It's a total and complete disaster. But the attempt was made.
Yeah.
To create art.
He tried hard.
He was trying to say something.
You go. Good job, Barry Gillis. Good job.
All right. Well, who wants to watch Things again now?
Wicked world, take me away.
Absorbed into Valve. We're concerned if their game you want, it turns out that's true, and there's a lot of work available. As we integrated ourselves into Valve, it became clear there was a lot of valuable work to be done on Half-Life Alyx. Some of us
Right now, let's move on to world premieres. Tonight, I am honored that some of the top game.
Helps to follow closer right behind.
Is it only when you feel the pot is empty that it's gnawing at the corners of your mind? We're